Hey everyone, welcome back. So I want to talk about how I came about creating some of these components, at least the more complex ones. Now we have our different input fields, we have input lists, drop downs, we have text areas, different versions of those text areas. And let's start with just the input field. This is probably the more complex component, and we're going to just go right into it. So if I'm going to take a variant or an instance out of one of the variants here, over here you can notice there's a bunch of different options available. If we dig right into the component, we'll see that there's the label stack at the top. Inside the label stack, we have a couple different options here. Because if we go back to and think about all like the best practices stuff that we have here, all this stuff over here is built with all these components that we have available to us. So there's definitely a lot of variety with them, and there's so many things you can do. So I've built a lot of functionality into here. So you have the ability to toggle your optional label or whatever type of extra text you want to put there. We have other options like putting a icon. So that's just it for the label stack. If we go to the text input, which is the main container here, it's another auto layout frame. And in here, we have another icon on the left side. We have icons on the right side. And then we just have the text value within. And you can see that they're connected in two ways. We also have an error and a success message. Oops. Let's go back to that. So we have an error message and a success message. So that is how it's basically created. It's all stacked within an auto layout frame as well, and everything is pretty much toggleable. So you can select a state. Okay, here's my success state. And if I want to not have a label here, I can remove that label. And if I want to, change the value, I can change the value. If I want it to be empty, I can leave it empty. I can also have like a right icon and change the instance of that icon if I need to. And then I have my success message. So you could have a help icon as well, right here. So this one's a pretty complex input, but now they're set up for you to use whenever you like. You can take these components and duplicate them into your file. That's probably the best way to go about it, is just taking everything, copy and pasting it into like a little assets page if you need to use these types of components. But that is how the input was made. You'll notice there's some base components here. They're labeled with an underscore, the name, and then at the end they have the name base. And that means basically that where you're going to edit these types of components. Okay, they also are interactive. So like when you click on this radio button, it's going to turn active. And when you click on the active state, it's going to turn inactive. Same thing with like the checkbox as well. Then I have a list item, which has the text. You'll see it over here in the layers panel, but it'll have this base component as well. So it's kind of like building upon piece by piece. And then you can go ahead and use them like this. So that way you don't need to change the style of each individual piece here or line item. You just have to change it once over here in the base. So if I say I want to go into my design tab, so if we keep a lookout and I want to change this to like bold, it's going to change for, my variants of the radio and my variants of the checkbox. Now, a lot of these are broken into different types of states. So these are the variants here. We have like default. This one is just like default empty. We have two different variants there. And then we have the input list where we have, the Boolean on the label. So if the Boolean property, you don't need to say, oops, let me grab an instance here. You can just toggle the label off if you need to, and you can specify if you want it to be radio or checkboxes because they basically follow the same design pattern. And then on the right, we have drop downs, and it's essentially just an input. And drop downs don't have many states. They just have like that open state. So they do have like the label, and you could put like the optional label here. You can even put like the help icon if you want. And then you can choose between open and closed with the option list. And then the text area is very simple as well. We basically have a couple of variants in the sense that we have like, the value within, we can toggle the label icons, the optional label. You can customize the value within, like what the text says, and we can also, have a disabled version, active version with the outline, and then we have a pill version, like one of those advanced inputs. So all of these are using a lot of auto layout to toggle those features and ensure that whenever they are toggled off, whether it's like an icon in this instance, things are very responsive. And even if they're stacked on one another in another auto layout frame, they kind of will close and open like this. So I'm going to take both, Shift A, and if I say I'm going to toggle off this success message, everything is responsive within. So that is how I went about creating some of the components here for forms.